Thank you so much, Gretchen. Folks, if you missed that, please tell your friends they can find the link to listen to that talk at another time. Same with all the writers coming up now. They will all be recorded, and so poets, you can let your folks know that if they hadn't seen you now, they can see you later at the other sites. And please let them know that there is another Saturday happening. And I don't want to take up any more time because I want the writers to have as much. So I'm just going to introduce them by their first names, and they will give any other introductions, and we'll hear their poems. Thank you all for being here. So let's start off with Lori. Lori, so glad to see you there, sitting, look like you're happy. Welcome.
Thank you, Paul. First of all, I would like to thank Lisa and Gretchen. That was extraordinary. I've heard your voice for years. It's lovely to see you and hear from you, and what an extraordinary research. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, Paul's nodding. I'm trying to change my view. Here we go. No, that's not working. Okay, that's fine. I want to also thank all the sponsors, and Paul, thank you so much for everything that you've done. Let's see if I can move this so that it's a little more centered. Yeah. I'm going to read 3 poems today. I have two from my new book. It's Keeping Planes in the Air. It's from Salmon Poetry, salmonpoetry.com. And it just came out in March, so it's been interesting trying to promote it during the pandemic, but we're doing all right. Since tomorrow is Father's Day, I thought I'd read a poem about my dad, who died when I was 28 from brain cancer. But this is not about that per se. Dad's Scents, S-C-E-N-T-S. My dad smelled like Old Spice and old books. Spinoza, Keats, Jung, and Shakespeare. Typewriter ribbon, Head and Shoulders. Vinyl dust on Beethoven records. Played high on high volume for his one deaf ear. White starched shirts from the cleaners, shaving cream and witch hazel, Nivea lotion and Crest, Gold Bond powder and talc, leather shoes and jacket, creams to grow hair on his bald spot, yellow dog fur, parsley and lemons, red wine, sometimes gin, tonic, and limes, reel-to-reel tape, cherry pipe tobacco, Subaru seats, occasional marijuana, his second wife's perfume, fountain pen ink, chalk, and student papers, pigeons on stills, car exhaust as he pulled away, the phone receiver when we talked, alcohol and liniment, chemo and radiation. Too little, too late. Christmas pine, our last time together. Incense and the sweet smell of dirt. And the other one is from my husband, who I've been with for 22 years, and he is a dad. His son is in Florida, who has just turned 30 this year. Second sleep. We find ourselves awake at 3 a.m. You want to talk about your truck. Last Monday's accident caved in the passenger side frame, knocked the bumper right off. A rear ender for the books. Thankfully, you are not badly hurt, just a sore neck, some stiff muscles. The guy who hit you with his Lexus, airbags deploying from all sides, walked away, apologizing. His car and your truck totaled. Now here we are in bed, awake, talking about new trucks, or used ones. What is the best way to go, and how great your 2004 Chevy Silverado was. A rare find in pristine shape 4 years ago. What you really want, I can tell, is your truck back. There is something conspiratory about being awake in the dark, in the night, together in bed, just sharing thoughts, touching hands, laughing like long-lived couple always done. I bring the computer into bed where we search for trucks. The room a web of blue. The internet world looks strange against the sheets and pillows. We rest there awake, or almost, until 5 or so. Watch as first light makes its way through the blinds, disturbs our intermezzo. So we close the computer, and our eyes sink into the old world calm of second sleep. And this is a newer one that was published in New Verse News in, I believe, the end of March. Trying to sleep during the apocalypse. In histamine-driven midnight storm, awakened either by the red cat's whiskers or your breath, I recall the moments before my hour's sleep, stumbling upon a live feed of the northern lights, where I could hear the polar wind, its breath, running and falling, the breath of earth and ice and flow, the pulse of sun's electric charge, searching for a good blank page to place in ink the element of shift, to try to describe how Arctic ice's flow affects plankton and sea angels and viruses held for eons in cold embrace. How does sleep come easy to you, my love? Now you are well, and this new horror threatens from beyond our bed. 4 years ago, you in hypothermia and coma after CPR, the nurse warned me not to hold your hand or touch your skin, so my life force dare not bring you back just yet. A connection so strong we could draw the other back from death. We know little about this plague, except it takes away the very breath, pulls at the sinews of our imagination. Panic coursing through my body, my hand touches your forearm, and immediately my heart rate slows. You breathe your future, and I sleep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. Stay with us. You might be able to get one more short one in, but at the end. But thanks a lot. Let's move right away to Robert or Bob. Hey, I hear you have a new book coming out, man.
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, it's by Human Error Publishing. Isn't that exciting? It should be out in about a week. So I'm going to be reading, I'm from the Dudley area, which is like about an hour and a half from you guys. So this Zoom thing is like really cool for me because it saves me a huge commute. And it's great to be part of this festival. I'm very excited. So I'm going to read a few poems from the new book. First one is Seed Which Changes Everything. When I was young, I went on an adventure in the woods behind my home. The memory of it is surreal and dreamlike. The familiar woods transformed into another realm. Walking through the forest along the well-worn path, something urged me into a grove of sumacs. Pushing through, I came to a small clearing full of light. I've spent years trying to recall exactly what happened, have dreamed of this place, and can still see it vividly. Returning to the area, I have found the sumacs, but not the clearing. Something otherworldly and inexplicable occurred. I have never been the same. Some days I wish I could remember the event, but I have a suspicion that it retains its power because of the mystery it presents. Creator sometimes acts like a secret agent, infiltrating the ordinary to plant a sacred seed which changes everything. This poem, The Divine Third, is actually being published by Poetica Magazine's Ms. Moore anthology. It's Spirituality and Nature, and that's coming out in the next couple months. It's called The Divine Third. Along the pathway towards home, there you are, and here am I. But what is that gust of air between us, unseen but deeply moving? Just outside my periphery, I spy it, like a bright aura around your shadow, living, moving, and having being, animated by our connection. Wherever two or more are gathered, under the yew tree or in the city, along the riverbank and in the tenements, every conversation is a testament revealing the power of the word. This is a personal favorite. This was in my first book of poetry called The God Who Hides. The natives looked for lessons under every leaf and rock. They knew you were a God who liked to hide. We build cathedrals, paint them immaculate, and fill them with statues, icons, and other accoutrements, effectively hiding God. I went for a walk and sat by a brook, and that is where I heard you laughing. Wheel turns. The wheel turns, stars fade in and out of view. Life begins and ends at every moment. The wren sings and the jackdaw croaks. Children laugh and the tribes of the world play capture the flag. At the center of the wheel is the stillness, largely unnoticed by the busy throng, untouched by the vicissitudes of time, inaccessible through commerce or coercion, unknowable by philosophy or dogma or reason, yet infinitely present in each fragile breath. Trade winds blow across the globe, empires rise and fall. Still, the center of the wheel remains unchanged, impervious to manipulation, undaunted and ineffable. The sea swells and recedes while the sun makes its rounds, and the moon drives us to madness with its beauty. All things bright and beautiful, merely reflections of that sacred stillness. Petrichor is that smell when rain falls on dry ground. In this dry season, lightning flashes without rain. Earth cracks and splits wide open, entreating the skies for a modicum of moisture. Yearning for rehydration, memory surfaces, surfeit of water, rippled like scales of a silver fish, undulating with the breeze, cool mist on warm skin. Parched lips form a rough prayer. Eyes lifted up, the old one beats the drum. Feathered bright, donned in turquoise, now the dance begun, now the rain will come. And I'd like to close with a poem. It's 30 years old this year, but it still, for me, elucidates the struggle between the heart and the mind, or the intellect and faith. It's called In Cold Seasons of Self. It amazes me your patience in times of trouble, seasons of doubt, embedded in my anger, searching for understanding. I forget what you are all about. Could I, in bondage to abstract reason, deny you, engaged in mental treason? I stumble, waiting for the words, I fumble into the absurd. A prefabricated defense, an elaborate pretense. Can I refute the obvious fact I'm keeping my pride intact? A misguided rationalization, a ruse of my own creation. Shall I succumb to mere temptation, a demonstration of demoralization, of hard luck stories and allegories degenerating into an avoidance of the issue at hand? And can I deny the sin within, giving in to every whim, clinging to your grace as an excuse for being base? Oh Lord, forgive my trepidation, these anxious thoughts that overwhelm. When I'm distressed by situation, please remind me that you're at the helm. Thank you so much for inviting me to this festival. It's been absolutely awesome. You can find all my books online. Robert Eugene Perry, author, will pull up any, you can find them on Amazon or Lulu or Human Error Publishing as of next week. So,
Thanks a lot, Robert.
Thank
Hang
you.
in there. Okay, Dio, are you ready to go? Dio, you there? And there he is.
Unmuted, I trust.
Unmuted, and you're good, and it looks like you're almost in your radio show.
Thanks, Paul, and thanks everyone. Solstice greetings, summer solstice greetings. I wanted to share an excerpt from a work in progress that I've been working on. It's an epic poem. It's called 2020 Hindsight. And I want to point out before I start that any pronouns that you hear are not directed at you, dear audience. but rather at his malignancy's Republican death cult, actually. So let's begin. There we are. 2020 hindsight. What have we learned from what we have lived here? Land of opportunity lacking for much unity. We travel in circles, victims of uncertainty, or the opposite. Often wasting energy, angry, looking for others to blame, driving each other insane. Two wings of our one entity. 100 years ago, we suffered together so, and soon forgot the pain until it returned again. Then bread lines as far as the eye could see, and the long lost memory, typhoid Mary, contact tracing, leaders with empathy, and not much attention to the source of all this pain. Sorrow, death, and dissolution, not to forget all the confusion. Look over here, where the forest once sheltered so many creatures, now helter-skeltered and captured and eaten, sold in cages, or tortured and beaten by humans so hungry for profit. They've forgotten the comfort of just living in nature instead of their pocket. And then get on guard when we reveal it or mock it. Behavior once scorned in old tomes and court edicts, now worshipped above all else. Another contagion that might not kill you, but could ruin creation or love and harmony with any given relation. As we witness the end of countless other lives and existence of species, we are so sadly mistaken. While watching the news, the plague on our place, the chance of a cure, or the latest sensation, which means nothing, or worse, for expiring species, diminishing lifeless locations. Our machines grind down into dust, drawn out by building hot winds into recorded nightmares of complete devastation. How much distance have we put between us and this planet? Enough to make sure who's ever in charge, thinking they ran it, we're making it worse through selfish deceit, transparent theatrics, folding in stupid with putrid showmanship, apprentice to his own devolution, and posing always posing. Sitting for portraits never hung, though hanging may be too good for some, culling the herd, illness self-inflicted and predicted, unspoken requests, he please just get sick and die. Why cry? What about those who silent stood aside or bought in with the sin of hatred, exclusion, the ugly fusion, muddled illusion, the speeches of mammon, more important than life itself, life once precious as your child, and the wild, the wonder, even the thunder, or the sunset, or rising from memory, or the moment. Where did you just put your hand? In what sequence did it land? Near that handle or that lever? How did the weather become such a marker outside the windows, first lighter then darker, out there where it is moving about unseen stealth, feeding on everyone's health? More calling out, I can't breathe. It's waiting for your reopening, just groping for your lungs and wagging tongues. Wagging tongues of freedom, locking and loading and corroding the steely look in your eyes until your loved one dies. And you follow suits empty of souls, taking endless tolls on your future, your dreams. Yelling won't help you be more of a man, reacting to something you don't understand, like a child you once were, still unsure. You react, you contract the virus, not guileless, and stronger than you. The price of life, what is it? How much? The cost of a casket, a chair, a crutch, such grasping. We're asking for a certain degree of detention for those we are loath to mention, for their economic pretensions. What time comes unwound day after week when we seek the usual, it goes south to confusion? Or which moon is it? What happened on what day would you say it is the worst pandemic in generations or 100 years or recorded history of misery and purposeful injury? Original sin and slavery now kneeling on necks, the law on the street among wrecks, burning with anger, short on regrets.
Hey, thank you very much, dear.
Thank you.
And now, David, are you ready?
I think I am. Am I on?
I hear you.
Okay.
I don't see you. I don't see you though. There you are.
Okay, there I am.
Excellent.
Okay, good. So I'm going to read a couple of poems from, this is my first book. It's called Proletariat Sunrise. I'm going to start with a couple of poems about my daughter since Father's Day is tomorrow. The first one is called Note to My Daughter. It's a poem that I wrote a few months before she was born, as I was wondering about all the responsibilities of fatherhood and whether I was actually prepared for it or not, which at the time I didn't think I was. But she's 20 years old now, so things are doing okay. This is called Note to My Daughter for Caitlin. At night, I'm too easily convinced that my freedom shines like a newly minted coin, till these beliefs fly off on rented astral wings. In reality, I'm still on some windy back road going up or north under a desert sky that I continually read as blank. Yet even then, their soaring shadows go on turning and turning on the high cliffs and on the rocks below, smearing the surface as I hear myself speak in another room. The light from our stars emanates from an ancient universe. So all that I've collected, these rare coins, are for your future, a squall of possibilities to someone now only 19 inches long. Sit in the shadow of a coconut palm and sleep for an hour. The day is yours, and the past, a shifting mirage, falling like April snow. And another one for my daughter. This was written about 7 or 8 years later. The poem is called Owling. And the premise of it is a children's book. It's a picture book called Owl Moon. And it was about a father and his daughter who used to go out in the woods looking for owls. And so that was kind of the beginning of it. And then it's sort of a big digression after that. Owling for Caitlin. When you go owling, you don't need words, says the little girl in Owl Moon. She has a pink scarf and a red coat, just like yours. And she's out in the woods with her dad. Coincidentally, the weekend report from Nantucket includes one long-eared owl. And for the moment, we wish we lived near the ocean. But in winter, when the waves are perilous and the stoic shades of winter's blues and browns leave us unable to predict even the simplest event, never mind the weather. All this white space, meaningful as it may be, is just a lot of dark matter to us anyway. So we choose to block it out, like background noise, till that too becomes a habit. And we miss out on other opportunities, grander schemes. Our footsteps crunching the hard-crusted snow. It's like we said, we seem to be riding over the tops of things. Yet the title means something to us. Oh, we knew what it meant at the start, this frozen fountainhead from within you moving out, as Rumi calls it in one of his poetical improvisations. There's a couple of poems in here called Proletariat Sunrise. I'm not very original with titles, so when I find a title, I use it, and I can't use it anymore. This is part of the title poem. It's in 3 parts, but I'm just going to read part 2. It's Proletariat Sunrise, part 2. We are, of course, free to wander here in the shiny suburbs of our inner lives, having survived beyond absolutes, even when absolutes are forced on us by the will of history. Amiably, a breeze passes over, The grass is cool on our bare feet, a kind of protest. In the garden, our tomatoes ripen without the need for chemicals in the soil. Yet in one sense, we may be losing all this, our superficial reality, in a climate where more and more identities are expressed by consumer choices. Standing at the gate as in a silent movie, a narrative arc glows across the sky. Our quickening steps in this declining plane still create shockwaves of expectation. It's never easy to leave all you've ever known, to come live in a strange world. And the roads of our tidy utopia are marked with signs that point in various directions, as if our getting lost was all that mattered here. In retrospect, some clarity might be possible, but for now, we have the day's weather report. A cracked mirror full of the setting sun represented a spilling over of the imagination. Nothing speaks to us, though, not even a bird. Then everything does. Other stuff happens too, but never gets recorded, so is lost to our analysis. And did I go over my time? Or do I have one more quick one? Or
Yep, you can do one. You got one more. Sorry, I just had to unmute there. Thanks, David, for checking in. You got one more.
all right. So this poem is called Solo Baritone Guitar. There's no backstory to it. I was just listening to an album by a jazz guitar player named Pat Metheny, and they started writing. So this is what came out. It's called Solo Baritone Guitar. Now and then the air tuned to the strings of a solo baritone guitar, recorded thousands of miles away and in very different weather. The music expanding beyond these walls made our dry air sparkle like tinsel. And when we breathed it in, it was like breathing the air of a higher plane where nothing is left to chance. Yes, standing on that brighter shore, we could see others, our counterparts, dressed for a stylish upscale holiday season, clairvoyant and in perfect health, reliving all those years we'd sacrificed.
Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was great. Okay, so Dina, are you ready to go?
Ready to go.
All right, there she is. All right, Dina.
Guys. Hi, Lori. I was so happy to see you. I went and put on lipstick. I hope you enjoy that because it's the truth. Okay, I am ready. This first poem I wrote, most of this is new, but not all of it. This one was from March 23rd of this year. It's called Oh Mercy. The poor Clares rise in the wee hours, tread barefoot to the sanctuary, singing prayers into the night for the forlorn, the desolate, the weary. I lay in my bed at the same hour. I never learned to pray, never believed I might be heard. I think of the poor Clares, barefoot, singing, sacred. I hope their prayers are received. Oh, mercy. I hope they are answered. These are some strange times we're in, folks. And I mostly am bewildered. I don't know about the rest of you. But this one I wrote in January of 2017. And it was a while ago. And I was sort of, when I found it again, which happens, I lose things, I find them, whatever. When I found it again, I was really surprised at how relevant it is. It's a meditation from January 29th, 2017. We all feel strange. It's not just me, the ladies at the bank, the gas station attendant, passersby in the bakery, the clerk on the phone. I am overcome by a symphony of emotions I have never felt before and have no breath to name. In the way, way, way back of my consciousness, there has begun a low keening powered with a growl. Part sorrow, part determination spun through with elements of myself I have not met or named or needed before now. I sit with the sound, which is almost, but not quite unbearable to hear in myself. Stop holding my breath. Being with all of what is real for the earth and the people is like being at the nose of the ship as we shift into warp speed, more intense than my comprehension can contain. Stop holding my breath. We are shedding many skins, building new ways to protect our soft selves, a collective metamorphosis in order to survive chaos. A new shape and purpose in order to face tomorrow. It is okay that we all feel strange. Yeah. This is a poem I wrote a couple years ago also. It's called Dear Antifa. Dear Antifa, I abhor violence but do not refute its occasional dire necessity. I am an atheist chaplain, a minister of no faith, a poet offering only presence. Dear Antifa, every time I see photos of your black hoodies on the front line, I weep. You each seem so fragile. Where others see fierce, I see necessity. I watch from my sidelines as you fling your bodies just as soft as my body into the maw, intentionally getting in the way so that others can get away. Fierce, I see heart. Dear Antifa, I abhor violence, but you carry my heart into battle. May it shield you from the worst that can happen, even as you shield our brethren as we march. Dear Antifa, stand your ground. And if you need an atheist chaplain, call me. I won't pray. I have to imagine being in the room with all of you. It's a nice thing to do, to take a moment to imagine people, you know, being bad in the back of the room. I miss that. I miss the murmur. So, snaps. I love you guys so much. It's so nice to be together this way. So this last one is called Casey Key, which is a beach in Florida on the Gulf Coast. So from a beach famous for shells that tumble from the sea whole and pristine, I carry home in the rolling suitcase bags of broken pieces worn smooth by time and tides, shell spirals and fossilized coral stones with holes clear through, and a perfect rectangle of thick clam shell with barely rounded corners. How many years has it tumbled in the surf to be made exactly angled from something that began all curves? All of these perfectly altered by the fierce sea and flung ashore to glisten in the sand until they are taken by tide or by hand. A few are still intact and whole, except for having no resident to keep them from being dragged up north, along with all the flotsam I can fit in a suitcase. So that I can remember a sunset on the most bountiful beach I ever encountered, touch the bits and pieces with hope of walking in that beauty again. And that is where I will close, with the hope of walking in the beauty of being in a room with all of you, listening together in real life before too long. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dina. Thank you. That was excellent. Good to see you. Good to hear you. Richard, are you ready to go? There's Richard. All right, Richard. How you doing there, buddy?
That is
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, if you put the screen back a little bit, we can see your whole face. There you go.
Calling up my screen.
You got it. You're good.
I'm Richard Wayne Horton. I write hyper-realist stories with a kick. Some call them dark, but with laugh triggers. I like Walt Whitman, Leonid Andreyev, McKinley Cantor, Georg Büchner, and Cornell Woolrich. The world of small press publishing is a sunken Atlantis, full of treasure, most of it hidden. Some small press books have sold less than mine, but that's small beans. Still, if you want underwater adventure, my book is aptly called Artist in the Underworld. Now this piece, set in Duxbury, Massachusetts in 1966, is called I Stepped on a Rosary. Friday, the seminarians did lots of cleaning, getting the place ready for the guests. With Clorox fumes and the racket of the rotary buffer, Wound up seminarians got on each other's nerves. John Mormack, pushing a cart and wearing an apron, told Bob to get a move on. Bob thought, oh, really? Really? Saturday morning, they laid out the tables. Plates, napkins, silver, water glasses, cups and saucers. Pete Dietz was in charge, a former cook in a noisy Bronx cafe. Everyone rushed around in scullery outfits. The well-dressed donors and city council families began to arrive, greeted at the door by priests. Bob caught a couple of pretty wives giving Father Gwyn the once-over. He wasn't trying to impress anyone, but he was obviously young, smart, and in control, and young, and was that it? No, something else. In the future, he might make his own way, wherever that might lead. Leave the priesthood, take a lover, a woman, like the one now speculating, as she glanced lightly, so lightly, his way. Bob looked at the other priests for reference, cordial, solicitous, struggling hard while smiling to remember names and accomplishments, but not speculative, not open like Gwen. The shining, fragile guests piled up in the front hall or lingered on the steps. Money people, talking was their game. Donors, writers of letters to Massachusetts congressmen. Bob had to push through them to take a stack of dishes to the dining room. They would not move out of the way. He had to crab walk like Popeye through their aggressive stench of soap, perfume, aftershave, thinking, yelling mentally, shut up, shut up. He needed to find a quiet place. Father Moran arrived and took the visitors on a tour of the building and grounds. The boys finished setting up in the dining room. Richard Hackey said, how do we know when the teapots are empty? They're metal and they have lids. Pete said, walk along the tables and yell, pot check. Picture of Pete in his Bronx cafe kitchen, making jazz by hitting pots and pans with spoons, everybody yelling, jumping. The customers too, yelling for their hamburger. Bob had to take a trip to the bathroom. Strays, a mother and her 5-year-old son, were in the hallway outside the priest's restroom, which was being offered to the ladies today. Coming out of the other restroom later, he found Ma and Tot still there, in front of the lighted display case with books and photos, the mom pointing at something in the case. Her other hand clutched the shoulder of the boy, whom she had dressed in a little suit and tie. He was holding a rosary in one hand. She was giving him a lecture. He'd done something terrible already. Why can't you behave? You're a little sinner, that's what you are. Why can't you be like that man, pointing at Bob? Bob looked back at her and that displeased her. Oh, look at your suit with dust on it, wiping his suit coat sleeve as he squirmed miserably. All right, you couldn't go at home. You had to drag me here, so let's get back. She turned, her sleeve knocking the rosary out of his hand, just as he raised his polished dress shoe to follow her. The rosary was under it when it came down. Crunch. He paused, a look of doom coming over his face. Poor kid. Okay, did y'all hear that?
That was great, Richard. You got one more? Did you hear me, Richard? Okay, looks like Richard's having a little trouble there. Richard, can you hear us? No, you can't hear us? Okay, you could read another one there, Richard. You have a little bit of time. But if you can't hear us, then we're gonna move right along. Lisa, can you unmute Richard, or is he can't tell what's going on there, it looks like. Okay,
He's having a hard time with his audio. It's not him being muted, it's his computer.
oh, okay,
If somebody wants to write a better message than I did that says one more poem, he can see
okay.
it, he can't hear us.
Okay, great. So I'll just finish up because we're getting near the end here with just one poem.
Yeah, I couldn't read that note.
Oh, there you are, Richard. Can you hear us?
He can't hear us.
Okay, so let's move on then. Thanks. Thanks, Richard.
That's all I've got.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, so I'll just end with this one. First of all, please thank to all the writers who were here today. Please look them all up. They all have books, many books. A couple of them have several books. Please check them out. If you are fans of theirs, please tell other people that the readings they did today will be up online, so people who couldn't make it here at this moment can listen to them at another time. And there's some other great authors that were here. So one quick one to just end up, and then don't go anywhere because there is another author who will be reading soon. And this is called It's Not Funny. Times are tough. Times have always been tough. And a good laugh is always needed. Knock, knock. Who's there? The FBI. It's not funny. A skunk walks into a bar and the bartender says, "We don't want the bar to smell." And the skunk says, "Well, then clean it." It's not funny. There are 3 holy men, a priest, a rabbi, and a monk. A young child walked up to them and the 3 holy men said in unison, "Where do we find God?" And the child said, "We are all God." And the 3 holy men laughed. They thought it was a joke. It's not funny.